Living in a digital age is not a magic wand that would be able to guarantee you options that are always going to be available. Not every writer is J.K. Rowling, whose art is a one-hit wonder and led her to be the world's billion-dollar author. That is the biggest misconception in PM's logic. If you are from a privileged upper-class family, it might be true that you should prioritize choice, but that is not the perspective that both sides have to debate here. The burden that PM fails to meet is how life actually looks like as a middle-class parent. Two things I'm going to be doing in my LO speech. Firstly, on rebuttals on PM's case, and secondly, on constructive arguments and opposition's case. But let's analyze their case first here. Firstly, their PM told you that the parent's biggest goal is to provide the right guidance. This is very general to begin with. PM's premise is flawed because we believe that parenting has a lot of goals. Like sure, maximization of potential is one of them, but this is a comparative debate under a very specific paradigm of the middle-class parent. Let's revisit whether this actually is the right type of guidance when the parent gives you absolute choice. Our principle is simple, that we believe that parenting style has to be adjusted based on the context of your household. That is to say, you see a situation of your family, such as your financial situation. Unfortunately, this is exactly what will determine the trajectory of your life in the future. This is a middle-class household then, so unfortunately, we have to be more practical with the decisions of our child's career. Why is this the most important thing then? Because these digital careers are careers in which the most important part is actually appealing to this digital audience and participating in trends, etc. Why are these less stable in nature in comparative then? Because it is extremely time-consuming for your content to actually get acknowledged by the digital world. It requires such consistency to get that first push. Because not all actually good content will achieve the engagement that it deserves. The comparative then is that when you pursue a formal education, once you graduate, you're ready to get a job. The pay here is fixed. It's comparatively more stable because you don't depend on this arbitrary goal of getting famous. You can control your performance within the workplace. We don't think middle-class parents are providing the right guidance when these children are being allowed to enter a career with significantly less stability. Even Side Prop concedes that these children are most likely to struggle, but the struggle is what keeps you going. We are unclear as to why parents would allow their child to struggle on the basis of self-exploration. We think that having extra money to save for important assets in the future, like having a house or a car, or having savings in case something urgent comes up, is what is extremely important for the child's future. But secondly then, on their point of choice and unhappiness, we don't think that children on our side cannot pursue passions at all. 3 things to note here. Firstly, that our side does not prevent kids from having passions. They can still discover and pursue these passions in their free time, when they go home from their job. We think that it is when they're actually able to work hard to climb up this corporate ladder by a formal education that they can eventually get into management level positions. It is in this time then that they can do less of the heavy lifting in their job. They can live a life that is not paycheck to paycheck. It is at this exact time that they can actually have the money and time to pursue their passions in comparison to opposition's world where you're constantly trying to monetize your passions. This pressure then of monetizing your passion, my second thing to note here, is by making it appealing to the public. It's very incredibly pressuring. It makes your passion actually less enjoyable. That is, if I like to draw, I can no longer draw what I actually want, what I actually enjoy to draw. I have to draw things that other people like. But thirdly then, we don't think it's actually as easy to make enough money in a digital career. Why? Because the marketplace is hyper-competitive, exactly because of PM's analysis that it's easily accessible. That is to say that PM's analysis kills his own case. But second thing is that if PM's analysis is that you can learn from free resources, other people will also learn from those same videos. You will not have this competitive advantage. Meaning that it's very hard for you to make money from this, and most likely you're going to have added financial burden. The truth of this is that financial stress will plague these children because they are living paycheck to paycheck. At a point in which something urgent comes up, like they need to pay for healthcare, they'll have limited money to do so on Prop's side of the house. For all of those reasons then, Prop's case is out. Let's move on to my constructive then. Very quickly, what does this world look like on our side? Firstly, we would encourage children to prioritize formal education because as parents from a middle class, we know what it's like to be living on a tight financial situation because you don't have a lot of savings. But secondly then, we would also like to note that we will not force children to stop pursuing their passion. 2 arguments in my speech then. Firstly, on the duty of middle class parents, and secondly, on the maximization of choices in the long run for these children. First argument then. Why is a middle class parenting technique so different and so unique? It is not ideal, but let me tell you the truth here. In this economy, being middle class is not that great. Being middle class means that you have to live paycheck to paycheck. It means staying up at night worrying about the bills. Like in Indonesia, for example, it means worried that you're going to be 200 juta in debt because you need to pay for your parents' healthcare. As a parent who is middle class, you presumably have already lived paycheck to paycheck. You don't have that much savings or assets or investments, and you know exactly what the challenges and struggles as a middle class, and it is your responsibility in this situation to tell your children how hard it is and the challenges that they will face. Therefore, then, you have two duties as a middle class parent. Firstly, to give information that will maximize their survivability in the future, and secondly, to make sure that your child does not get overclouded or blindsided by their passions. Children are allowed to pursue their passions, but not to the extent where they sacrifice being financially well off in this capitalistic world where you need money to survive. So how should you judge this? This is far more important as a principle because Prop's arguments all hinge on the fact that children, they act as if children live in a vacuum world where they will not struggle financially at all. Because no parent should shield their child from the true nature of the world and the challenges that comes with having a tight income. It is exactly because we've proven to you that firstly, parents have the duty to make their kid able to survive, and secondly, while it's going to be more stable with formal education, that we are in line with the interests of these parents more. That is exactly how you should judge this debate. Second argument then, on the maximization of choices in the long run for children. 4 characteristics of these digital careers. Firstly, we think that these careers are often very fleeting. That is to say that you have to constantly appeal to an audience that has changing interests, that you have to adjust to whatever trends are going on if you want to be popular. Secondly, these careers are very time-consuming for you to actually get acknowledged, for you to try and build up an audience. It requires consistency for your work to be seen. Thirdly, it is also an expensive career. We disagree with Prop then when they tell you that all of this job values is creativity. If you have better equipment, which the middle class cannot afford, you're still going to get more engagement because you have better quality content. Fourthly then, it depends on creativity, being able to constantly put out content off of these new ideas. We think in comparison, when you work in a corporate job, it is your logic that is being tested and you're given responsibilities. It's much harder for you on the prop side of the world because you have to actively and consistently make a living, even if you run out of ideas, etc. If you don't have these ideas then, you're unable to publish content, there's no source of income. What is the clear conclusion then? This means that this type of career is a hit and miss. While you sacrifice your education, you won't have a degree, or even in their best case, if you still finish your degree at the end of the day, companies won't accept you because it's questionable why you finish your degree after such a long time when there are tons of applicants out there. You get a much better maximization of time that you spend on your job because these corporate jobs are more clear in terms of demand, whereas on prop side of the house, you're unable to do so because you're endlessly working just until you get popular, a goal that is very unsustainable. Because we fulfill the interests of children more to live a financially stable life, which is detrimental to their future, you should oppose.